My guest today is DJ Byrnes. If the name DJ Byrnes doesn't ring a bell for you, maybe the name The Rooster will. DJ runs The Rooster, an independent blog here in central Ohio that focuses on Ohio's politics. And in his writing, he doesn't hold back on how he feels about Ohio politicians, Ohio policies, and various things going on in the state. If you're not a fan of Ohio politics, then this episode's probably not for you, because we do go pretty hard on the Ohio politics on this one. But it is interesting because we do talk about DJ's life, founding the Rooster, and a lot more on this chronicle of the Columbus Chronicle. Before anything, and I read your piece on it, like, how was Life Surge?
Oh God, Life Surge was. I went into it with eyes wide open. I kind of knew when they talk about multiplying your wealth. Anytime you get the intersection of Christianity and multiplying wealth, there's a lot of nefarious influences there. And I mean, I'm not trying to bash the Christian faith or anything. I mean, I've read the Bible. Teaches of Jesus. You just read it and you think.
It's not about making billions of dollars.
Exactly. And you read this seminal, you read about the money, the famous when we went stone cold mode in the money changing temple. And you think like that's like a seminal text, and the whole that it's easier for a rich man to pass, or it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle rather than a rich man to go to heaven. You think that should be pretty clear. Okay, it's pretty much easy to understand. And so I thought it was just going to be some kind of like, heebie-jeebie wealth, prosperity gospel thing. But it started off, they were very insistent that it wasn't the prosperity gospel that they were preaching, because the prosperity gospel preaches apparently that everybody can be millionaires through Jesus's teaching. And that's false. The way that Life Surge teaches it is that not everybody can be millionaires, and actually the secret is signing up to these. It's $97 for another class. So right when you hear that, I mean, it's just the classic like bait and switch. And then they would summon literal money changing tables out. Literally, they would bring them out like 3 times throughout the day, and then they would have people in the concourses too with little mobile areas, and they would hit
Trying to get you to sign up.
Yeah, and so I'm thinking, I'm not like nobody calls me Don Numbers. I'm not some financial wizard. It's not like I have millions of dollars in the bank or I play the stock market, but I'm from Marion. I know a good scam. And anytime when somebody's like, the secret to money is giving me more money, and signing up for these additional classes. And I was like, oh man. And it's just well-intentioned people there, and you don't sign.
Yeah, they come there under the pretext of seeing some.
Yeah, and they hooked with Urban Meyer and all these famous Buckeye players. And there were some motivational speakers of ill repute. But then it didn't look like it was like poor, unwashed clouds. But I mean, anytime they brought those tables out, it was like they probably got a couple thousand people, I'd say, to sign up. Maybe like probably 1,000, 1,500. I don't know. But I mean, at 97 a pop. And then if you read online, the classes, they're trying to upsell them. I think that at the classes are where they can really hook you into them, because they've got proprietary software that can grade trades. And anytime, people are pitching, you don't need money, you don't need credit. I mean, I just know what I saw. And then coincidentally enough, like, I was playing nights because I told my wife, I was like, I'm just going to go see, Urban Meyer. I figured it'd be around, it went till 6. I was like, there's no way it's going to go all the way till 6 p.m. I was like, I'm going to see Urban Meyer and let's see what they're talking about and get out of there. And they brought him out at the very end. And I noticed the pumping of the classes and stuff. They did the final push before they brought those guys out. And then when the Buckeye players came out, and Urban and everybody, Kirk Herbstreit, like they told their little, I have the famous clip. I sold the clip to Fox News about Urban talking about Bible, installing Bible study at Ohio State, threatening to leave. He loves his tall tales. But they specifically never referenced the classes. They didn't push classes. As most as I got involved, when people were signing up at the money changing tables, they had like 25. If you sign up today, 25 lucky winners will get a photo op with Caleb Downs, Jeremiah Smith, Urban Meyer, and Kirk Herbstreit. And I went into it, anytime you see Urban Meyer and Kirk Herbstreit together, it's like, I've been around this town a little bit enough to know that, like, it's, those guys, like, they don't need the money. If it's willful ignorance at best if they don't know what, if they could, I'm sure their lawyers would say, well, they just got an opportunity to talk about their faith, to give a 20-minute softball interview for probably tens of thousands of dollars, I would assume. That was really disappointing to see. And Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs and Tavian St. Clair, I wasn't really a Fulbright scholar at that age. And in the NIL era, you've got, get your money. Like, I hold them into, like, less account than I do Urban and Kirk. But I mean, just pay, like, just listen to these guys for like 10 minutes and the scam just becomes obvious. And it was, I walked out and, like, I was like, in a good mood. I was like, gonna go. It was debilitating, especially just seeing all those people signing up. And, like, if you're signing up for classes like that, you're not in a position of wealth and a bad factor, and you're just in a bad place to, like, get taken advantage of by, you see Urban Meyer and Kirk Herbstreit up there, like, you think it's like a legitimate operation. So we'll see. I might attend the classes and see what's really going on there, but
I want to talk about all of that, and I have so many questions about some of the things you've done, but also, like, thoughts on politics looking forward. But I want to go back to growing up. What was your early life like?
my early life, I was born in LA. And then my dad's an alcoholic, actively. He was drinking and stuff, and then the Rodney King riots. My mom claims, like, it was like 20 minutes before it happened. It was probably like that same day, but we were coming back from the Natural History Museum, and we went through that Rodney King riot where they drugged that white trucker from his truck and, like, I think beat him within an inch of his life. We went through that intersection. My mom was like, oh, like, she had I was like, before kindergarten, it's like preschool age. My brother had just been born. My dad was drinking. And my mom was like, the riots broke out. She was like, LA really ain't for me. So we were in Pasadena. She moved to a little place called Marion, Ohio, City of Kings, about 40 miles north, High Street as the crow flies. And that, I think, a lot about how my life would have been different had I grown up in LA. But I grew up in Marion, and it's anybody who grew up pretty much anywhere besides Columbus can relate to the story. The factories moved out, the heroin moved in, yada, yada, yada. And then, like, my parents got divorced when I was 16. And in retrospect, there was a lot going on in my life. And I was like a kid, like, crying out for help. But I also had a blog called The Rooster.
And this was at 16, you had that blog?
16, yeah. And I had a blog, and it was basically like, I'm 38, so it was before the word blog, like, it was like a blog, but it was like before the blog and, like, the blog era. And it was just basically like before social media and everything. And it was like, nowadays it wouldn't be a big deal because kids have social media, but it was the first time, like, in an era where kids to, like, go home and write all their thoughts, like, hey, this school sucks, like, my teachers suck, the only cool people are me and my friends. It was just a poorly written, just a blog of grievances. And it got me in some trouble, and I ended up leaving Harding. I got in-school suspension for insubordination because I refused to do my homework at the end of class in biology class. Went to River Valley. I graduated 111 out of 122. And I don't know, to this day, I don't know how those, like, 11 people behind me actually graduated. I think, like, it's generally an indictment of our education system that I have a degree. And I went to Montana out there, got in some trouble, was doing all right out there, but I just didn't have any, like, structure. I didn't know how to study. I made the dean's list, was doing all right, but I got in some trouble. Conspired to rob a drug dealer. 4 felony charges, $100,000 arrest warrant. That was like, the bartender that got killed on High Street a couple years back, Sucker Punch, Greg Coleman. He was involved in that. He was a football player at the time. It was a big scam out there. And I was like, I learned at an early age, crime wasn't for me. I came back to Ohio and I partied my way out of Ohio State. I've just never been good at like bureaucracies and education. My biggest regret is probably not taking my education seriously. I probably have a wall of credentials like you over here. Had I, but it's, and then the alcoholism got terminal there for a little bit. And then, but I bet this whole time I basically had like one set of skills, which is typing deranged sentences on the internet.
You do a good job at it. You do a very good job.
Entertaining strangers. And so like I'd run for, statehouse in MAGA country in 2018.
Yeah.
Got my ass kicked. They were like later socialists and they kicked me into the river. But I quit my job. I was working for 11 Warriors at the time. I quit my job and I was like drinking and I was like, what, nobody's really looking to hire that type of person, especially like a pro union in Western Ohio. And Substack had started and I was just like, okay, like I have a following. And my girlfriend at the time I was like, I didn't know what to call it. She was like, well, why don't you call it the Rooster?
Because that was your first.
Yeah, that was the first ball. And I was playing, I published at 4:33 in the morning and it's at Crow. And it's just kind of like the brand had like fit. And now it's like a Frankenstein type of, Frankenstein and his monster. People are like, there's the Rooster. It's like the Rooster's the blog. But you say like DJ Byrnes, even at the Statehouse where people know me, people are like DJ Byrnes, and they're like, who's the fuck DJ Byrnes?
Yeah, they're looking for the Rooster, not DJ.
And you say the Rooster, so I run with it. But yeah, I mean, if my life could have gone, a lot differently in a lot of different ways. And thankfully I got off the alcoholism train.
Do you mind me asking, like, what was there a specific moment when you were like, I'm done?
Yeah, there was like a time where I was like basically in like July 2022, I was drinking like pretty heavy. I mean, it was at the time my then girlfriend and I were living on Moeller Avenue at Parsons by that TJ's. Kroger right across the street, which was nice. But then, there's a liquor store in that Kroger. And it's like when it's 9 a.m., anybody watching this, if it's like 9 a.m. and you're in line at the liquor store and you know the other people in line and what they drink and you're bitching because it's 9:03, you're hungover, the clerk was supposed to be in there 3 minutes ago, you generally have a problem. And my girlfriend, she was at work and I was like hungover, I just bombed out on the couch, just completely fucking hungover. And Kevin Harris, who worked with me at 11 Warriors, he just walked into my house, my landlord's spare house. And he probably thought he was like somebody was squatting in there, like it was like homeless. And he was just like, I'm here. I am here to basically make sure you don't go across the street to go buy liquor today, like get drunk. We're just going to hang out today, me and you. Like he brought his computer. He was working at the time. He's like, I brought a computer, we're gonna like hang out. And I was like trying to finagle him to like, and he was like, no. And he actually joked like, if I resisted, his plan was he was gonna go over to the liquor store because he's like a youthful like looking guy, and he was gonna go over to the liquor store. He had my picture like printed out, and he was gonna show it to the clerk, and he was gonna say, this man showed me his penis in the parking lot.
What a pal. What a pal.
Try to get me excommunicated from the liquor store. So
that's a friend.
Yeah. And it was just like, I'd done like 90 days a couple years prior after another breakup. And there were still some hardships from my drinking. I got myself into situations because of my drinking that I had to work through with my sobriety. But for some reason it just stuck. And my friend Greg, I had done 30 days or so, which is, felt like an achievement. I mean, when I first started, it was like, I've done an hour. Like I've done a day. I'm going to go across the store and get a pint of ice cream and just demolish a pint of ice cream. I was like, I did 30 days and then my friend Greg Coleman was murdered. Sucker punched, killed, beaten, and robbed, left on High Street. People were like taking pictures of him. And I remember I got that call from my friends, like, have you heard about Greg? And I was like, what? And he was like, he's in the hospital. He's like, got brain injuries. He's probably not going to make it. And I just remember like so bad, like I just wanted to like go drink. like so bad. You know what I mean? Like it was 30 days. I really don't think any of my friends, something I guess I could have explained. Um, but for some, I didn't. I didn't. And then it became like a thing. I kind of like it. Well, if Greg's gonna get murdered like that, I'm not gonna drink. Then what excuse do I have? Like what other, like I had a bad day or like I had a stress, like, it's kind of an insult to his legacy at that point. And then my other secret was I was smoking way too much weed. And then that's been a whole nother revelation too, where it's just like, I can't, like caffeine is about as wild as I get now. Cause I can't do anything without making it a problem.
Yeah, like a moderation. Yeah.
And like for better or worse, and it comes out in my writing too. Nobody calls me Don Moderate. I can't do anything. I'm either in or I'm out. And especially just with substances. And I miss, smoking weed more than if you had told me, even 3 years ago that we would have legal weed and I wouldn't have spent a dime on it. I probably would have slapped you. But it's been such a benefit. And I try to be open about it and talk about it in my writing. But I know there's people, especially my beautiful Redditors, they'll even mention, I've got addiction problems and stuff and da 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 da. And there's a lot of people that expect, once an addict, always an addict. And it's just a matter of time before I go back to that lifestyle. But I also know that
I disagree with that sentiment.
I do too. I do too. And I run on a lot of spite and I just will never give them that pleasure. But once the benefits start stacking, it becomes pretty easy.
Yeah. And especially to see what you've built for yourself.
Yeah, and it's like, if you look at my business line, I mean, it was always like, gradual and slow growth, which is how you want it. But you can like really see the chart where it's like, okay, he like stopped drinking and like started going to the statehouse and doing
When
the
you put
video
all your energy
and
into
doing
that.
the video work. And so now the rumor's gone from like, I'm homeless. When I first started showing up there, I was like, yeah, I was talking to the state legislature. I gotta go bed with my wife. Like, you have a wife? You have a house? You have a bed? I was like, what? He's like, people think you're homeless. I think it was because I showed up biking and like sweating. And if you have like, if you bike everywhere, you either have 28 DUIs or you're homeless, I guess. Um, and so, um, yeah. And so now it's like I've got a trust fund. I don't need the money. To do it. And it's like, well, that's almost more insulting to me than being homeless, because it's like, I have millions of dollars in the bank and I'm like just hanging out at the Ohio State House, like risking getting measles, like coronavirus, like super coronavirus, like hanging out with just the worst people ever. Like, give me a break.
I have a question. You mentioned your writing and how you kind of always done it. At what point did you realize that you're like, damn, I might be pretty good at this?
It's just always been like, I credit my mother. Um, my dad, I love my dad, but he was going through some things when I was growing up and he really wasn't around. And I was raised by my mom, and she kind of from a very young age, kind of instilled in me, writing, and then hanging out on like EverQuest forums, like in the 90s. Like, people try to insult me now. It's like, you can't. I've been murdered. But I was arguing with grown men when I was 13 online. Like, please. Um, and it was really like when I was 16, I had this blog, The Rooster, and it was just like dumb stories. It was about, stuff, just stuff like adventures with me and my friends. And I'd write these stories, and like, I just really had an effect. Like, I realized the effect, like even on teachers, some of it bad, some of it, like some teachers respected it. I made my Spanish teacher cry because I was pretty mean to her. Um, but I've always just been it was like a really big deal in like the ecosphere of my high school. And it was there was about 500 kids in my freshman class. So it's not like it wasn't a podunk operation. And, from then on, I've been able to, I've just always been online. I've always had the social media presence, and my friends have always like kind of boosted me up in that way. And then with 11 Warriors, I was drinking at the time. I had a Tumblr, and I made fun of my college roommate Kyle Rowland. He works for the Blade now. He's up at the Toledo Blade. Yeah, I'm a golf writer, and I had an article called "Things Kyle Rowland Thinks Are Amazing." And it was all the things on Twitter. I just searched his Twitter for like things he said, like, wow, this is amazing. Like he just loved the word amazing. And it was just a list. And the owner of Love Warriors hit me up. He's like, hey, you know, we'd love to come right, you know, da 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 da. And my first contract was like $35 a month for like 4 articles, like 1 article a week. And I remember him like chiseling me. I was like trying to pay a cable bill or something. I remember getting chiseled for like $10 from this guy. And I was like, what the fuck? But I built it up. You know, it was at 11 Warriors where I built it up from that all the way to, you know, a full-time position, which, you know, in the media sphere in that realm was like $32,000 plus a bonus, you know, and I'm like more money than I've ever had. So, and it was at 11 Warriors where like, it's just with my writing, it's been, you know, there's how I carry myself and showing the personality that I do. There's always going to be people that are just like, F you. You know, I saw Mr. Beast. I don't watch any YouTube videos. I saw Mr. Beast's clip one time on Twitter of him talking about how he intentionally doesn't show personality because then, if if you show personality, then somebody might not like your personality. They might not view. Then his like idea is like Max. He wants as many people watching videos as possible. For me, I'm just like, well, if you don't, you know, take it or leave it.
Find those people that.
Yeah, and I look at it where it's just like even at the statehouse now, and even from high school to 11 Warriors to my statehouse work, where it's like, as long as I'm making you feel something, that's a win. Like if I were in the business and I was like, there's some guy that calls him the Rooster, you know what I mean? Like I wouldn't be very successful. But when you walk into these rooms and people like, for better or worse, they know who I am. They you know, they can say what they want. I have the number. They've read me. And that's just kind of been, you know, it's been something I've had for my whole life. And it's really like, you know, you just don't fall into this work.
Yeah. No joke there.
And now, you know, and then with the video work that came in later, it's always, you know, like like busting people's balls and stuff. It's just kind of played into like the perfect set of skills.
For what you're doing.
For what I'm doing. I make more money now than I ever like would have imagined.
Do you mind me asking? Like, I know it's like,
I'll make over $100,000 between subscriptions and you know, TikTok.
really?
Yeah, you got to get the creator package. $10,000, like 10,000 followers is the grind, and then it was 20,000, and I got 20,000 followers, and I thought it was like the TikTok shop. I was like, I'm so excited. I signed up and I was like, well, I'm not, what the fuck? Like, if I get on there, like, you need to buy these Crocs slippers. So, like, people be like, what the fuck? I'm not trying to hunt jock.
Marketing.
I was with Matt Ward, the offbeat real estate agent. He'd be a good guy to interview. And he's like, no, he's like, let me look at this. And he got on my phone. He's like, you're a business account. He's like, you need to switch over to a personal account. And so now anytime you go viral on there, you can make like, you know, some serious cash. Yeah, it's got to be over a minute and original content. And if you get anything over 1,000 views pays. And so that's like, if you'd have told me 2 years ago I'd have 20,000 followers and I'd be like actively like researching TikTok, I probably would have slapped you.
Man.
But yeah, I mean, because people think like you need millions of followers, you know. I get for pokers, like, well, it's not like you're, you know, it's like, well, I'm not up here covering Beyonce, motherfucker. Like, you know, it's a state politics in itself is niche, and then I'm alienating all the Republicans, just how I act, and then I'm alienating probably like 25% of people who should like agree, you know, I'm on his side, but he's an asshole.
But that percentage of really focused people that follow.
So you need I mean, I tell people at high schoolers and stuff, like, you need 1,000 people to give you $100 a year. And like, are you like, if I got paid in bricks of gold, it'd be cool. Like, but it's like an inverted pyramid, and then like you get the loyal followers, and then there's no cap to it. You know what I mean? Like I don't have a boss. Like I'm not like doing all this checks and seeing all this money go to like some C-suite executive who doesn't respect my business or the trade.
You get to have full editorial control of what you do.
Yeah, and granted, you know, when I sell a couple more subscriptions, I could use an editor sometimes. Like I can pretty much organize my thoughts. But like like random like little fact checking and stuff, because you're just pontificating on like so fucking much. Like it's inevitable you're gonna fuck things up. But yeah, there's nobody, there's no like last Tuesday, I went up to say I had to cancel last Tuesday because there's a scandal break, and I walk into I thought I walked into the public safety committee and expected, everybody's all the media's in there, and I'm thinking like, okay, we're all going after this plumber guy, and they're in there covering like dangerous dog legislation. And I went home and told my wife the story. She's like, oh yeah, dangerous dogs are like huge in the media right now. There's like all these like stories about like dangerous dogs, like people getting attacked. No disrespect to people that have been attacked. I've been in some dicey situations biking on the west
Yeah, I
side.
was gonna say biking around
with unchained dogs. German Shepherd pops out on you. It's not a fun place to be, but it's like, like I'm never, if I want to bust up some guy who's like involved in this like scandal, and somebody tells me to go cover dangerous dog legislation.
What are your kind of thoughts on the state of kind of the local organizations here in Columbus when it comes to the media? Are there any you follow along with, or?
Yeah, I follow all the media. I mean, because I inherently I'm a Twitter addict, just straight up. I get those screen reports on Sunday, and I'm just like, yeah, it'll be like, your screen time went down 33% this week. You had 9 hours. But it's like Twitter's like reading. It's reading. Like I'm constantly just ingesting stuff, and people sending me stuff. But like the local, that's why I figure if I just keep posting in 10 years, because I remember being in the media. I remember being in high school 20 years ago, and back in the day, I would have loved to have been like some grizzled alcoholic newspaper columnist making $80,000 a year to type out 2 800-word.
Yeah.
Just because my boss liked reading me, and there was no metrics. If this guy was really moving the needle or not, it had to have been the golden era. But I remember just being in high school and seeing what had happened, the Marion Star, and the institutional,
Just the private equity coming in, gobbling up those.
And make no mistake, it's been good for me personally to fill, to have that void to fill. But it's been terrible.
Yeah.
For our state, and at least in Columbus, there's still vestiges of it. Even though you see people get laid off. I just look at how many times how much information I produce on myself, or how much I put into the public sphere, and then when you read all these papers are laying off 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people, it's how much information
that one person is able to contribute,
is
right?
going through the cracks, is not getting out there, and and then but in town, it really hurts in towns like Marion and the Mansfield and these small towns where
that's the watchdog for them.
Yeah, and then it's you talk to these people out there, and I'm always honored, I'm big in Tuscarawas County apparently, and yeah, and to talk to people, it's well, where do you they sent me some link, check out this story, and it's Bargain Hunter on Facebook, and it's I'm what is this? We get the Bargain Hunter, that's one of the news sources out here, and it's what? Which I guess generally is how people think, they hear some guy
the
called
Rooster, yeah.
But it's Bargain Hunter, you would think I'm were we getting some ads, coupons? And I think there's the dearth of just information out the information deserts, and a lot of it, and Facebook especially, they don't care.
And it's so sad because it's you're no longer being fed that local content, and it's just all national, and that replaces the dialogue that happens in that community with national level things instead of what's happening at their local city elections or their state elections.
Yeah, and that's kind of what the thrust. I try to the thrust of my operation is hey, and again, it's become, like you said, it's become nationalized. So it's I was in Washington D.C. It's I could make a lot more money in D.C. doing what I do out there, because it's national, bigger markets. If you want the capital, if the shareholders, but it's turn out I feel TV news, especially the network, local news, has just kind of been, drop the ball on it a bit. Because you talk to like even like political people that meanwhile, like, oh, I'm into politics, like, da, da. Well, tell me about your state legislators.
Yeah.
What do you know about your city council? Like what they're doing. And yeah, there's just this whole, it's like really underreported and it's important.
And it's a shame because it's, and I don't blame a lot of the people that are working at those stations. It's the fact that they've been bought by a large corporate entity, whether it be like Tegna, Gray, Nexstar, something like that. And then they, in a push to get more ad dollars, add more newscasts. And you can't film more newscasts when you're cutting people. So you're just given syndicated national content. And that just, again, fills the sphere.
Yeah, the TV people, they're really up against it. And, like, because I was reading this book about like cops and how they like influence media stuff, and they have like their own, they had this whole chapter about how they have like these beefed up media departments to basically supply stories to local news stations, and like they come ready, packaged and ready to go, because it talks about how they're just under the constant crush. I mean, I write 4 or 5 days a week. And even in like some of the summer months, it's like, well, we're gonna figure it out. Like I couldn't imagine like it's like 3 newscasts.
Yeah, minimum to go live at like 4, 6, and 11 or something like that. Yeah, it's wild.
So it's I don't envy the TV reporters at all.
So your own personal blog, and then you go to writing for 11 Warriors, so very Buckeye focused. What made you go, I'm going to the State House?
So you had Trent Smith on?
Yeah, love Trent.
He told you about the patio?
Oh yeah, I'm big fan of the patio.
Yeah, but no, I was an entity there for a long time. I know the owner, Michael Wayne, the good guys, but it was like in January 3rd, 2023, there was a speaker's race with Derek Marion and Jason Stevens. And I had some reported on this picture with Derek Marion that was pretty embarrassing. And I was like, people are telling me like, this guy could lose. Derek Marion is the speaker-elect. The Republicans elected him. Traditionally, the Republicans fight it out. They pick a winner. Then they all vote for them on the floor. And I was like, yeah, I don't think it's going down like that. It's looking like he's like, this is in flux, da 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 da. And that was like when they first like dealt me into the game at the State House, because everybody's like, who the fuck is the Rooster? And I was sitting there smoking way too much weed at this time. I was living on Moeller Avenue, and I was like, yeah, what's the last thing they would expect? What's the last thing they would expect? And I was like, I'm gonna go up to the State House, and rode my bike up to the State House. Derek Marion fell through the floor. I was like reeking of weed, like in this Hawaiian shirt. You've watched the videos, like everybody's just looking at me like, who is this homeless guy? Like, who is this?
Somehow has a pulse on this.
And it was like, and it was like seeing like the pervert red carpet, like, seeing like your celebrities, like how it's like, there's Bill Sice looking hungover, like he climbed out, from under a bridge. And just all these people that I had been blogging about for a while, like it was like the red carpet. Derek Marion falls through. It was like his supporters had come through all throughout the state to see this like coronation of this boy king, and it got stolen. The rug got pulled out from him, and I'm like cackling. Like it was the closest I've ever come to heroin. I swear to God, like I've never done heroin because I'm from Marion. It's like one substance I won't go there because I'd be dead in 6 months. But I imagine it feels a lot like that day felt. So a couple weeks later, I was at the patio, smoking cigarettes with a guy named Joe, who's like as far on the right as I am, probably on the left. And he goes, we're like smoking out down Sullivan Avenue, being real cool guys. And you ever heard of First Amendment audit? And I was like, huh? And he's like, First Amendment audit. You should go home, look it up on YouTube. He's like, you'd be good at it. And Joe and I had almost come to blows. So I was like, well, okay, like we'll see. All right, like if he's saying it. So I went home. It's like these guys that they go into like post offices,
these public spaces,
libraries, police stations, and they film. And then they try to like, what are you here for? Oh, I'm just filming. And they're like, First Amendment audit, and they try to like get kicked out or get their cameras obstructed, call like a Bain violation, and like, and you can get like paid. And it's like, I don't know, there's some, and like I was like, I probably have, like I probably would be good at something like that. Like I have the troll blood in me, like the DNA. But I was like, man, I work at the post office, brother. Like those people are, you know what I mean? Like, we should be throwing rose petals at their feet. Like, it's like the management there, it's not a good place to work, at this current time, especially. And like the last thing they need is like me in there, like trying, filming them. And I was like, so I was like, I'm not trying to harass working people. But then it hit me. It was like, shit. I was like, but wait, like the state house is a public area. I am trying, like politicians, um, people hate politicians. And then how the state house works is you don't need, like, people don't realize how transparent it is. I blogged about it for years because I was just too busy getting drunk trying to kill myself with, cocaine and weed, to ever like go up there. But you can just go, you don't need a reason, you don't need an ID. It's not like City Hall where you need an appointment, you gotta give me your ID. You can just go up there. If I was homeless, that's where I would hang out. Um, and if we were having this conversation at the state house, somebody could like theoretically just come up here with the camera and like film us. And so I was like, huh. And yeah, a light bulb. And then there was House Taco, which is on 3rd Street now. It was in the bowels of the State House at the time. I was eating. I'd just go in there to eat, and I see these guys, and there was like Andy Brenner, State Senator Andy Brenner, was walking by one day, and I just was like, "Fuck it!" I just jumped up on him, got my cell phone out. I was like, "I'm DJ Byrnes with the Rooster, the Patriots Caucus," and we got a picture together. I was like, "Can I give you a quick interview?" And he was like, "Sure." He had no idea what to do, and he's like shaking like a leaf because I'm like a pretty big guy and I'm probably smelling like weed at the time. And I'm like, "We're here with Andy Brenner today, folks." And he's like, "Hello." And I'm like, "Senator, do you remember that time, probably about a year or so ago, that yeah, during the pandemic, you called into like a state controlling board meeting, on Zoom, and you were in your car, but you had your backdrop as your office. You wanted to make it look like you were calling in from your office, but it was like a national news story. State senator calls in from his car, and he was like, I was parked. It was like, you were wearing a seatbelt. You returned you returned the car." And he just walked off. And then from there, it was just, you could just hang out up there. And then from there, it was just on and popping. There were some famous interactions before people like really had heard about me. And then it really didn't take long, um, to like get the name. Once I started like showing up there regularly, a couple viral videos as interactions, because like the state house is a lot like high school. Politics is all high school, but the state house is like the worst people from high school if they just like hung around for the next 20 years, and then everybody like called them like, senator and like representative, and like these guys just get, you know, respected wherever they go. They're just so used to it. And because of the media environment, a lot of them come from the hinterlands and stuff where they're not good on camera. They're not good. You can knock them off their talking points pretty easy. Um, and there's a whole, like, that would probably be my biggest critique of the state house media. And this, again, it's not with the reporters, it's with the editor class. Like, if you're a politician and you're in a scandal, and you've got caught living 75 miles outside your district, and you tell them you don't want to talk, they'll just make no comment, and that's it. Where me, I'm making you walk the plank. Like, we're gonna have to talk, or you're gonna have to walk guilty. And so there's just this whole vacuum of like video content, long, unscripted, not like the little 30-second hits you see on TV. And I think that's really um what has propelled it to the next level.
Yeah. Do you have any stories that really stick with you when you look back at all the times you've gone there? Is there a single moment where you were like, "Man, that was not what I expected it to be"?
Uh, sh- I mean, the big one was the Derek Marion story when I first got dealt into the game. Since then, probably one of the craziest moments was State Rep Bill Dean, guy from Xenia. He's a plumber by trade. His son just replaced him because he got gerrymandered out. So in Ohio, up until about like last summer, it was you could rape if you were it was called the marital loophole to rape, where a husband couldn't be charged with raping his wife, like technically. And there had been probably 30 they've been trying for like 30 years, like, end this thing. And they just, in typical state house fashion, like, a bunch of like the holy rollers, the Republican wing of the party would like block it. And they finally were able to get it to a vote in the House. And everybody, there were two holy roller women that abstained from the vote, but everybody voted. So it was 96 yays, 2 abstentions, and then one no. And it was Bill Dean for Xenia. And so they're in the House chamber. I'm like, okay, well, this guy's going on camera.
Yeah. Real fun.
This guy's going on camera, and we're going to do it the biblical way. And so, like, in the statehouse, I mean, they're in public areas. I mean, you can, you can't, like, I mean, you probably could, but it wouldn't go anywhere. Like, F you, SOB, da 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 da. But if you have First Amendment rights, like, you can put them to the question. And so it's like a big, like, there's 2 ways to get out of the House chamber. And thankfully, like, I picked the right one. I went out front, and he was just hobnobbing with the, with the voter. He had some people there, and he was just like hobnobbing, and I'm like, perfect. And he, you have to have some decorum up there. I could be a lot more disrespectful than people think. So I wait for him to like have his moment, and he turns and he just walks right into the danger zone. And I'm like, Bill, I was like, Rep Dean, I was like, we got to talk, brother. And he's like, about what? And I was like, what the hell was that vote back there? And I was like, the spousal, he's like, you think it's a spousal rate's okay? He goes, it was a great vote. And like, somebody had to vote no. And like, I got him all the way from outside the House chamber. We went like downstairs. So I'm telling him, I'm like, man, like, does your wife know, like, you have these views? Like, and you look on his Facebook, he's got like 8, like, so many kids. It's like, oh my God. And I was like, cause I'm Xenia PD, I'm opening up a case on you, brother. And he's just like laughing about it. We go downstairs, and we're like walking outside, and I'm like, yes, I got him outside, which means I have him like, you're scout for you can really tee off on him then. And we're going outside, and he just like turns around. He's like, like, he went from like this like kindly jovial man to like, he's like, we were just shut up, and like really just like growling like, "Brr." And I was like, oh, whoa, okay. I was like, well, you're not the first person to tell me that, Rep Dean. But we just kept going. I kept badgering him and got him outside. And he just straight up admitted that he was like, I believe if a man and a woman live together and they're under the same roof and they're not separated, I don't think the husband can rape his wife. He goes, I don't think
said that
yeah,
flat
he just flat out said it. And I was like, literally, like, it, like, just to hear it, like, put on the table like that, like, I could have got him. We were in lawn. I mean, he was walking all the way across the street to the Vern Rife. I just like was like, well, like, it's like,
at least almost a thankfulness that you just said it out.
yeah, it's like, well, I guess that ends that debate. Like,
That's what stands.
and we just finally, you badgered him all the way down the stairs to him just basically putting it on the table. And that went super viral for obvious reasons. And it's like, because it's just one thing to like the dispatch, they called the dispatch called him and he answered, and he told the same thing to the dispatch. But it's like one thing to read about it in like a headline or a text, but to see it and to see the progression of like, it's a great vote. And like, and then the snarling, like the turn and like the snarl. And it's like, well, okay, I see what's lurking underneath there. All the way to him just straight admitting and like stunning me. Like the video, it's just like, holy shit. Like, and then you look at it, and then you go home and you look at his Facebook and he's got like 10 kids, something crazy. And it's like, good Lord, like Mrs. Dean. And then in typical fashion, Xenia, he was term limited, and one of his sons just replaced him, Levi Dean. And now he's trying to ban fluoride. But that was like one that like really stuck with me. And then Dave Dobos line about his, the Hilltop Hustler. He lied about having an MIT degree for 30 years. And Jake Zuckerman of Cleveland.com, he's with Cleveland Signal, he's Cleveland.com at the time. Jake Zuckerman, one of the best reporters up there. But again, like he got him, didn't have, hadn't dead to rights on this story. Like he admitted it, took it off his official bio and everything. Didn't give him a comment though. And it was like right before like people really knew who I was. And it was after session, and Dobos is coming right down the stairs from the chamber, and I'm just sitting there, walking into the danger zone, and I jumped on him right away. I was like, "Rep Dobos, you got any comment about lying for 30 years?" And he had some canned speech, right? Like some canned response that he gave me, and he like tried to walk off, and I was like, "Yeah," he like tried to walk off, and I forget what I said to him, but I said something, and he turned around and he looks at the camera and he goes, "Well, they voted for me." And I was like, "Yeah, because you lied."
It's like a George
Yeah,
Santos.
yeah. I was like, "You lied about your credentials, brother. Like, hey, why would people think you lied about having a degree?" And he looks at me and he gives this like what what are you gonna do? Like, look, like you got me. And it's it's just the power of the video, and it's just the stuff, and that's, you always got to keep it rolling
Yeah, because you never know what
because you never fucking know.
Yeah. I could talk about all your stories because, but I'll just recommend people read them, from Urban Meyer to the Vivek catfishing. But I guess actually on that point, I would love to know your thoughts on our upcoming governor's race.
It's gonna be depressing. Vivek Ramaswamy, obviously you reference it, you pay him a compliment, you get him to speak at Canes, which sounds like, it sounds like I'm having a go, but that's actually like what happened. Um, total, total con man, in my opinion. I think he got rich pumping, dumping dementia drugs. Um, you hang around with him, you see like the juice that he's got. Like his talent is be able to look at like, a sheet of paper, absorb it, and then get up there, rip a speech, 40 minutes, no votes, or, no notes. Um, but I think he's all hat, no cattle. If you just look at the guy for a second, like, he'll get up there, like yesterday, perfect example, he gets up there and says, "I'm tired, China's beating us, like, I'm tired of being like mediocre, da da da." It's like, okay, you want to stand up to China, what's the plan on that? Because you want to privatize it, you want to basically like gatekeep education for the wealthy, like, and but he's been anointed by Donald Trump, and we live in a state where if Donald Trump puts his arm around you, that's pretty much all it takes, for a certain sect of Republican voters, enough to win. He just forced Dave Yost from the race. I mean, Dave Yost is attorney general, had been in Republican politics pretty much his entire adult life. And he railroaded Dave Yost out of existence. Jim Tressel might get in. Um, I think Tressel would be a hell of a general election candidate. But I know Vivek's camp feels that they can make a lot of hay about him saying nice things about Democrats, donating to some Democrats, and doing, DEI at Youngstown, which I guess, would be worse than holding a Klan rally in their mind. But they think they would make light work of him. And unless Trump endorsed Tressel or like did some dual endorsement, I mean, they might be right. On the Democratic side, got Dr. Amy Acton. It's no fault to her. It's going to be like the most annoying camp. Just like if she were to win the nomineeship, just the Republicans are going to spend $30 million just painting her as like COVID Hitler. And it's just like, I feel she missed the boat to run for Senate in 2022. She's a lot like Vivek in the sense, like you read her Twitters and stuff, it's like this vague notion and like all this. It's like, what are your policies? Like, what are your credentials? You've never had a job for more than 3 years. Which again, like fits a lot of people, would have fit me, until, the Rooster we clipped 5 years now. But also I'm not running for governor. When the bullets started flying, during COVID, like she like had a lot of eating disorder problems. Her kids like were really worried for her. Like when the bullets started flying, like I'm not sure she's built for like a general campaign or really understands, because she's been around saying like, oh, I had, because it was going to be like Dave Yost or John Husted thought was going to be the nominee for a while to Vivek, and it's like, well, I know where the bodies are buried with Yost and Husted, and it's like, what was that? Does that involve a tape of them doing cocaine at a gay orgy? Like, not like anything short of that, and even that might not matter. Like that might not move the needle if Trump's involved. And it's like, do you think they're just gonna like lay down and be like, oh, okay, like they're gonna go full bore you? So I have a lot of doubts about her candidacy. She'll raise a bunch of money. She'll raise a bunch of money. She'll win right now it's saying she'd be the front runner to win the nomination. But it's like in the general election, what are you gonna run on? Like, because at the end of the day, too, like even if she did win, what's the first thing that's gonna happen? The legislator's gonna take away some of her power, take away her appointments, take away her patronage ability, and then she's still gonna be left with a gerrymandered supermajority Republican legislature, Republican Supreme Court. You know, I mean, it's not a really enviable job. And then Tim Ryan, he might get in. I've got plenty of criticism about Tim Ryan too. You know, one of his former employees said, you know, Tim Ryan's still trying to decide what he wants to be when he grows up. I feel like I, I I feel he would have a better chance at beating Vivek if it went to a general election. Not just you know, Amy, I can probably feel because she's a woman, I'm discounting that, but I feel he would make a better candidate. He's run statewide. Ryan versus Acton would be a generally annoying primary that I would not like.
You like to see governor if you had the ability to, you know, crown someone.
If I could, if it were up to me, LeBron James, barring that, you know, he's probably still got a couple more years in him. I want Tim Misney.
Yeah.
You know, for Northeast Ohio, Tim Misney. I actually talked to him. I was put my hat in for he's doing a movie. And I was like, I'll play young Tim Misney, and you know, like I'll shave my head. I'll go Heisenberg mode. But I talked to him, and it's like, because that's how I introduced, but you know, I was like, I'm president of like the Tim Misney for Governor PAC, and he was like, you know, he's like, well, if I ran, I'd win big. I was like, you're damn right. You know, and just like make him pay. I feel is just baked in for our political moment. And he just understand, you know, like you have to be loud in this game. And the worst thing you can be is boring. But he's like, you know, he's like, I'm right now picking up my kid from weightlifting. Gonna take him home. I'm gonna make him dinner tonight, and I value that time with my son much more than I would like he's like, right now I'd be in some, you know, sweaty parlor in Canton begging money for like political donors. And I was like, yeah, I get it. And then Sherrod Brown, some people think he's gonna run for Senate again. Some people think he's gonna run for governor. He's kind of been in typical Sherrod fashion. He's been non-committal to anything. But he's trying to put his thumb on the scale for the ODP chairmanship race back on former Portage County Commissioner Kathleen Clyde, who I also had some concerns about. But it's like, if you're going to interfere with the chairmanship race after your last pick really didn't cover herself in glory, if you're going to do that, like, you got to run them, brother. Like, you can't. So I think I've heard both ways. I've heard that Sherrod he likes the contrast between him and Vivek. And that, you know, and then also, like, if he runs for Senate, you have to run in 2026, and then you have to turn around and run in 2028 again. And it's like, you know, Sherrod's no spring chicken anymore. It's like, does he want to do back-to-back campaigns like that?
Yeah, it's a good point.
But he also liked being senator for a long time, obviously. So
What do you think the most important issues facing like Ohio and kind of the Columbus area are? Maybe just general Ohio.
our most important issue is education. The education system in this country or in Ohio is not great. I mean, I'm able to pass as a semi-literate, semi-educated person, primarily because my mom instilled a love of reading in me, but also because of a small cabal of public school teachers that took an interest in me, saw my potential. You know, there's a lot of like rappers and other people like, oh, you know, my teachers never thought I'd be shit. Like I guess I was built different. You know, it was more like this guy needs to start trying, da 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 da. But the education, we were fifth when I was in school, and now just with the expansion of just um, these fly-by-night charter schools, you know, I go out on the west side, you know, in like these Cervex centers. They don't even have their playgrounds are like on blacktop, like all like square cages, like they're prisoners. You know, there's a charter school with the 3 points right there at the 3C highway intersection with Mound. And it's just like, what kind, you know what I mean? You're going to school in an abandoned shopping mall. The expansion of the charter schools, school vouchers, um, that have they benefit, you know, the rich suburban kids who are already going to private school. It's the subsidies of, you know, they're subsidizing rich families who are already sending their kids to public schools. And they're like, well, why should they have to pay for public schools? And, you know, if they're sending kids to public, well, that's how taxes work, brother. You don't get to pick and choose. Like, I've never called the fire department. I don't call the police. I I still got to pay all those taxes. That's not how it works. And I just think the crumbling of the public education system, it's by design. They rob them of resources, and they can turn around and they can say, "Oh, our failing schools," and da 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 da. And you know, if you go to if you're in Bexley, you're fine. If it's in Upper Arlington, you're fine. If you're in like these growing city, and generally in Columbus, like if you're in a growing city where people are moving in and things are going well, things are going good for you. But if you're like anybody else, if you're a poor urban district, if you're a rural urban district, you know, where like say what they can talk about these private education and all these charter schools all they want. They don't have to take special needs students. If you have a special needs student, what you know, they have some scholarship. Yeah, they'll take 5 special needs students. Maybe if it's a really bad case, if your student really needs help, they're not they're a business first and foremost. And I think that along with just it's more of a national issue, but our tax code on the state level is just one of the most regressive in the country. Or it's this idea, well, we're just going to keep giving the rich and rich more money, and then it's gonna, you know, trickle down, and they're going to create an environment where everybody prospers. And I think that we've seen it for the last 40 years. Like it just they're just going to hoard it. They're going to hoard more resources. And when you rob people of education, when you rob the ability of them to like climb the social ladder, when you make stuff stagnant, you know, the Republican rule of the last 20 years, I don't think it's a surprise that we've been hemorrhaging young people for the last 20 years. Cause I was there, you know, I was 18. What the hell did I want to do? I wanted to get this far away from Ohio as I can. Now I'm back and I've erected a prison, so I might live and die within a 40-mile radius of central Ohio. But those are just the wealth inequality and the education would be my top 2 things. And it's not, and when I bash on the Republicans and what they've done to Ohio, you know, I'm not a partisan hack. Like if you go to California, if you go to New York, they've got their own problems. Just because if we elected all Democrats, it wouldn't suddenly turn into like a communist utopia. It would be cool if it did, but it wouldn't. Um, but those are the 2 biggest impediments. The Republican Party is the biggest impediments on the state level. And like right now is a perfect example. I tweeted right before I came in here, they don't have the vote. They're trying to expand iGaming. So you can like gamble on your cell phone.
Yeah.
And the casinos are saying, oh, we're going to give you, it's going to be hundreds of millions of dollars a year, which, you know, I feel like gambling on the macro level is like evil. I've got some opinions on that. Same with marijuana. I got some opinions I didn't have when I was drinking. But it's like, okay, we're losing that. Let's just say we're losing that money anyway to other states that have it. Like, let's say 100 million. What are we going to do with it? Are we gonna do infrastructure? Are we gonna do schools? Are we gonna, you know,
What's the plan for the money?
child come taxing credits? Are we gonna pay for, you know, subsidize, you know, daycare for parents so they can go work? No. They wanna get all this money, and they wanna use it to slash the income tax, which is good, which again, it's like, oh, who enjoys paying income tax? But again, it would just benefit the richest among us, while the rest of us are getting bilked on sales tax and every other, regressive tax that they would have to install to make it up on the local level.
Speaking of the local level, I want to talk about Columbus a little bit. Do you think your reporting I shouldn't say do you think, I think that your reporting directly impacted the recent Tiara Ross, Jesse Vogel race?
59% of voters voted against Ross, basically. Which is a good case, which is good. Like, that's like the prime example of like ranked choice voting and what it prevent, where somebody can win an election
Great
where more
point.
people like technically voted against them. Um, I think, I think it definitely helped. I think it definitely hurt her. It's the type of story that just, it plays into, okay, like, and again, it's something like I remember when I moved from Montana back to Columbus, I was at Ohio State, and I would get parking tickets in front of my friends. I was a lot cooler back then. And I just crumple them up, throw them on the ground. Oh, what are they gonna do? Throw me in parking ticket jail? No, what happens is you're gonna go renew your license. They're gonna say, sir, your license has been suspended. You have to go out to Allen Creek Road. You have to pay $1,400 to get it back. Thankfully I was in a position to do that. Um, but when we learned that her license was suspended in that investigation, I was like, what could it be? And it was just like, oh, well, I was like, I wonder if it was parking tickets. And my wife knew where to look that up. Da 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 da. And it's just like the story where it just plays into like a character of somebody, like the entitlement. Like you're like, she had a bunch of her parking tickets were like outside her apartment complex. And I was like, which I just figured she would skip. She didn't want to pay for like the parking pass. Well, when we challenged her residency, we got her lease. She had a parking pass at her apartment complex. She just decided she didn't want to go park in the parking garage and walk back to her apartment. She was parking, and she was like taking tickets before work. She was taking tickets after work. She was taking tickets some of them were out, in the general area of her work downtown. A lot of them were at bars. And it's just like, she acted like, oh, it snuck up on you. It's like, no, you were taking these tickets repeatedly. It's, oh, well, they stack up on you quick. Well, yeah, if you don't pay them, they're on the ticket. And it's just the kind, especially like older voters that tend to vote in those interstates. It's just like, okay. And then the scandal, um, her cheating in law school, or it was actually my wife. Like, she's like, she realized, oh, like what we were doing important. She's like, oh, I went to like law school with Tiara Ross. I was like, I wonder, she like searched her emails. Well, it turned out she had and then like she was caught basically cheating with another girl who's now a lawyer at First Energy of all places. Um, and I wouldn't, and I've told people this too, because it's like, I've had people be like, well, they agreed not to punt it. I kind of let her off the hook, like withdraw. It's kind of like, they let her off the hook, and to have that, brought back all these years later. And it's like, sure, I wouldn't have published that on its own right. My wife wouldn't even remember that. Like, she just straight up didn't even remember it until she searched her name in her emails. She's just one of those people that has emails going back to 2008. But it plays into the character. Now, but I will also say that while it definitely cost her a lot of votes, I think the campaign with Jesse Vogel, because of just how it's set up in this city with the fake ward system, where like, perfect, like Jesse Ward won that, he won the district by 20%. He won the actual ward by 20% of the vote. But because it's a citywide campaign, and because, like Tiara Ross she doesn't have to fundraise, because like people don't know this, the politicians, there's a limit on what I can donate, what you could donate to a candidate, but there's no limit for what a politician can donate. So like if you're the mayor, if you're on city council and you have $80,000 in your campaign account, yeah, and you're not in an election, you're not facing a credible threat, and you want to buy influence among your colleagues, here's $20,000. Oh, you want to do a mailer? Here's $25,000. I'll cut that for an in-kind donation to the Democratic Party, and so it's a way for them to maintain. So you need somebody who like has recognition, who like you know, like has the name, that has the credibility, has the political organization, and then on top of that, you need somebody who has the fucking money to go campaign citywide. And you know, they've tried to make. I know the establishment's trying to make pay, hay on Jesse raising money from outside the district and stuff. He has more donors than Tiara from inside Columbus. But what's he supposed to do? Like, if you're running for office, are you not going to lean on your networks? Like, if I lived in DC for years and I have all these connections and people, like, to me, that's just, and if you're living in Alabama and I get you to donate to my campaign, you're getting nothing from it. Like, that just means to me, it speaks to like, they see you as a good person and the influence. There's no, it's the kind of, the least kind of corruptible political donation there is. So I think her problem was twofold. She's a bad candidate, and that story is gonna haunt her for a while. And it also helped to have somebody in the race like Jesse Vogel. And I think hopefully, I mean, there's a long way to go with the November election. The city is gonna circle their wagons. They're not just gonna go quietly into the night on this one, but I just feel like it's not how government's supposed to work, man. Like, it's not.
And that's kind of what I really appreciate about your work is it's not really like while you do focus a lot on Republicans, it really is focused on the authority when they're not acting right or there's something amiss with that. And I mean, it looks like it goes back to all the way back to school. Like you've always had that issue with like,
Wow.
yeah, well, maybe a little different. Yeah.
Had my dad hug me. Had my dad hug me a little more. Maybe I'd be an accountant or something. But yeah, I'm cynical of the power structures, and I'm not invited to any of the cocktail parties in this city. The Democrats at City Hall. I have a friendly relationship with some of them, but there's a lot of them that view me in this like in a worse light than the Republicans. While I do lean, I wear my biases on the city. Nobody's gonna confuse me as somebody who's not on the left in my writing. But I do have a lot of criticisms with how Columbus operates, how the city politics operates. And people are like, why don't you go up to City Hall like you do the State House? Well, the City Hall is way less transparent. They meet Monday at 5 o'clock. Which is like just the most diabolical time. Like and half the time I'm like, it'll be 4:30. I'll be out on my bike. I'm not gonna make it downtown. But they can drive into like their private garage, park in the private garage, walk up a private stairwell, appear behind the wizard podium.
So there's
you
no
can't
way
get
you
in.
can follow them through.
Yeah, and unless you get there early and you catch them like out in the hallway, like mingling or whatever, or see them out on the street, like they can just come in, they can make their decrees, go back through there, and there's no way, like if they don't want to interact with the public, if they don't want to put themselves in the quote unquote danger zone, it's entirely easy for them to do that. And then if you go up into the State House, like or at the City Hall, you need an appointment. You need an ID, like, oh, here, give us your ID. Well, now, the hackers, they stole that. And if you've been to City Hall for the last 20 years, now, some guy only got the North Koreans have all your personal information. And it's just way less transparent. We're at the State House. They've tried to change the rules on me a little bit, but at the State House, it's so big. There's so many personalities that you can play off each other. So I'd hang out at the City Hall as much as I could, but the rules have to be changed up there.
Yeah. You mentioned some of your concerns for Columbus. When you look ahead to the future of Columbus or maybe even now in Columbus, what are your excitements? Like what are you excited about, but what also concerns you?
I'm excited. We're moving towards a bike friendly. It'll be decades, but like we're doing some things. We got the Whittier Bridge coming, the East Broad. They put in the protected bike lanes. I wish the bollards would just explode if the motorists hit them. Because Columbus is just it's flat.
Yeah, it's a great
flat.
space for biking.
We could be Amsterdam really if we wanted to do it. But unfortunately I feel like the urban highways have to go. I love Columbus in my own embarrassing way, and I think I'm not sure if I believe all the, we're going to have 3 million people here by 2050 or whatever. But I mean, if you look at climate change and
Very moderate state in terms of the weather.
yeah, I mean, there's really not, that's kind of like the paradox of this place. Like everybody wants to leave, but it's like if you project, climate change on the next 50 years, you really can't do much better than Central Ohio and our access to fresh water. Um, and I think we're on the precipice of, if we're going to be a big city, if we're going to be a proper city, like I'm excited about the Linkus package, and I think that
As am I. Yeah.
Shannon Hardin, and I've got plenty of disagreements with Shannon Hardin, and he's hopefully he'll be the next mayor. I haven't heard of a better candidate yet. Um, I do trust his sincerity and wanting to make it better. Like he's from the South Side. He came of the populace. He got appointed like everybody else. He is of the machine, so he's beholden to some of the more nefarious influences in there. But I generally trust his heart and his direction for the city, and I think we have an opportunity to do something cool. If so long as I love it, in my own embarrassing way. I'll never forget being on a Southwest airline flight, and somebody was like, "Oh, you're going to Columbus?" And it's like, "Yeah." And the flight attendant goes, "You have a nice little river area." Just like real opposite. It's just like, as I'm like biking through the Scioto Mile, and I think I hope we can kind of shed, I hope we can kind of shed that label and show people like Columbus is, it's everything you make it. And especially if you don't mind driving everywhere and you have the money, Columbus is a great place to live. Some of the things I worry about, there's no way to, I wish we were like, our housing stock is just, we're way behind. And there's no push on the city level. And it probably has a lot to do with the state too. Like I wish instead of just going to the developers and giving the developers all these tax breaks and stuff, I wish we were in the business of building public housing ourselves. But this is America, and even like free bus fare. They're hesitant to do free bus fare because what is the biggest crime in America? A poor person being perceived to have a handout. God, if we start giving bus passes out to the poor, like, Grandview will fall.
And you will fall.
And then the wealth inequality. Like, and if you still look at, if you look at the racial demographics of Columbus, I mean, you can draw the interstate, you can draw 71 right through it. And I worry about the effects on that. And if we're ever going to, just the car mentality of Columbus that we've built we've built our entire city around just the idea you can go anywhere from point A to point B in like 20 minutes. And like people be like, well, I go to a real city and do traffic and well, congratulations on driving a car in New York City. Like I never would, but that's you. Like, I don't understand what that has
To do it.
Yeah,
do it
tea
with
has, do with the price of tea in China. And if we don't get it right and people, if people still think they should be able to drive everywhere at the drop of a hat and the urban sprawl, then it can become someplace like Houston really quick, where there's and because that's the original sin of Columbus. And Lex Wexner, of all people, got some criticism of him too, if you can believe it. In the 80s, he recognized like the problem with Columbus, there's no like central hub of Columbus. Like there's just a whole bunch of like vying neighborhoods that is like kind of spread out. You got the Short North, you got the campus, you got these like various small influences. And like his idea, like downtown was basically a suburban office park. Like they made it so all these, you can drive in, you can do your job, send your
whole
emails, drive out. And if we don't, like the city, they've got some plans and they're doing something, but if they don't just really want to tackle the idea of car dependency in this city, and like, I mean, I'm a freak. I get around on the bus, and cars, but like
I love taking a Coda bus. It's kind of fun.
yeah, the city. I mean, I'm just lucky that I live. I can walk to the grocery store. The Mexican markets. I can do that. I understand why people can't, but it's just like if we continue to go down this road and like ODOT with the 315 intersection down there, it's just going to be some soulless car-driven neighborhood where you're not interacting with your neighbors. You're going to live in neighborhoods where everybody, looks like you, acts like, and some people want that. Some people want that. Humans generally want that. But if we don't have leadership that's willing to fight that notion, then it's just going to be some urban sprawl, no soul. And then the longtime residents will be priced out of the city and they'll be shipped to the suburbs.
I a couple years back did the Ohio Erie bike trail, driving across the state of Ohio on the bike, and it gave me such an appreciation. One for biking.
You've done it all?
Yeah.
We should have led with that, brother.
Oh,
Shit.
good. Have you done it?
I've done Columbus to Cincinnati, but my brother and I are gonna do. He wants me to go down to Cincinnati and do all of it together. I've been up to Centerville.
Yeah.
One of those, like right up by Mount Vernon. That's as far north as I've been on it.
Yeah, it's so it gives you such a new appreciation because you pass through. I mean, you go through like kind of some swamps and boardwalks in Cleveland, then you cut through Amish country, and then you're like,
I heard
in the
Amish
city.
country is like the what? I heard they thought like the infrastructure because they
do,
electric
because they're
bike.
all on electric scooters and bike. No, it is. The electric scooter and bike market must be dominated by the Amish, because when we did that trip, it was like every person that would pass us was an Amish woman on a bike.
And so they don't do electricity in their houses, but it's like cool with battery.
Yeah, I guess.
That's crazy.
But it's super interesting. But yeah, big fan of biking, and I really hope Columbus really locks in. I'm excited about Link Us. I am. I think it's going to do some good for busing, but also in creating biking in the city.
And for people it's like, well, it's not. We've romanticized like light rail. And it's like, oh, well, it's not light rail, it's not light rail, and it's like, get on the bus.
Yeah, and I have critiques of Coda Bus. I wish they had like the tap to pay or something really easy to.
Yeah, you can do it on the phone on the Transit app. Transit app and get the little QR code, and you can badge in that way. I wish we had. I said you had a piece on it, right? Like why we didn't get the monorail. Yeah, I wish it was a train. Again, because it's flat and we could build it, and we were like this railroad hub. I wish we could take the Amtrak to Cleveland. Like in China, you can go from Cleveland. You can go from Columbus to Cleveland that distance in about 40 minutes.
Yeah, which is
on a train, which like for like
thinking
$5.
about how nice that would be here.
And that's back to what I worry about with Columbus. The state will never be responsible in that regard, and in the transit and some of the oriented stuff, because trains are a communist plot. But yeah, I do wish that people would just get, BRT is designed to, because why don't a lot of people ride the bus? Like, well, if I want to go up to Bethel Road, it's going to be an hour and a half. It's faster for me to just ride my bike on the Olentangy Trail. But I hope with Linkus, and it gets people out of, in like bus having its own dedicated lane. It's basically light rail. I mean, it's a talking point of City Hall, but it's true. It's like light rail and rubber, cheaper, should be more efficient. So we'll see.
Yeah. Final question for you, and then if there's anything else you want to add, go for it. But favorite places to eat, drink, hang out in Columbus?
Tommy's Diner. I'm about to go over to Tommy's Diner. Tommy's Diner is my number one spot. They know me. I used to back my up. I used to go in there and drink like I've $60 tabs like the Tommy's. Yeah, I mean like at 11, I'd stagger.
Insane behavior.
Yeah. Oh yeah, drinking the Greyhounds. I've ran up, and I started eating out with my wife there, and I'm like, man, it's like cheaper. Like it's like you get the bill and it's like $23, and it's like for two people. Wow, I guess if you're not drinking, $9 Greyhounds. Tommy's. When I was drinking, the patio. I was establishment at the patio. I like Main Bar for a while, Little Palace. I'm showing my age now. And then like on Capitol Square, I like Pat and Gracie's is really good. Elias. Elias, it's right. It's a Mediterranean spot, right on like Broad and High, just north on High, like probably half a block north on High from Broad, on the east side. So it'd be the northeast corner. Yeah, I don't know what their price, like what their connections are, but it's like 2017 prices. I feel like you go in there and you get like a big bowl and it'll be like $10. Like it's like $10.50 out the door. Mediterranean, you know, I feel like Columbus is like the bowl, the millennial bowl capital of the world. That stands out. And then I got into caffeine recently. I eschewed coffee like my entire life. But I'm into that lattes now. Black Kahawa Patio.
Black Kahawa Patio.
Yeah, on Broad. It's at that old Tim Hortons right there on Broad and High, northeast corner. A guy named Doug. He lived in East Africa, I guess, for like 10 years or whatever. And Broadway, he learned over there. It's called the Zanzibar Latte. You can get it like coffee, like Zanzibar Spice. I'm not sure. People have been like, well, what's in it? It's good. Like, I'm from Marion. You know, I'm not going to be like, well, it has, you know, these rich mahogany notes. I've smoked marijuana for 20 years. All my taste buds are shot. It's either just it's good or it's bad. Best cost. It's a little pricey. I mean, you're paying the downtown price. That's good. And then 3 Bites Cafe right next to it. If you want some like bakery goods or whatever, that's like, yeah, that's good. And then on the west side, I'd be remiss if I didn't shout out Los Pescados.
Los Pescados, where's that
Best taco. It's on Sullivan Avenue and Clarendon on the west side. South side of Sullivan. It's a big orange building. Their tacos are like, it's like $2 to $2.50. I get the Mexican style. And they have like the Pescados. It's like traditional. It's an immigrant family from Mexico. I assume they're just printing millions of dollars in the back. Like it's an efficient operation. Like you could order it even if you get like Uber Eats or whatever. Like it's always on point, always on time. They never miss an order. And they started as a food truck, and now they have like an actual brick and mortar. So yeah, and then on the west side, I mean, you got like any of those Mexican trucks you see out there. Best taco. There's one on Broad and Clarendon. It's really good. There's one up on like Broad and Burroughs. That's really good. That's a nice thing. And then Super Torta out there, yeah, on the far west side. So anyway, out there, and then El Jalahense. I know I mispronounced that. I'm sorry, husband. Don't bash me. But yeah, any Mexican. And then on Sundays, El Jalahense, they get like the mariachi band. Like I took my mom in that if I was gonna get like a quiet Mexican meal on a Sunday, and they're in there like party rocking. They got the cowboy hats and stuff, and I'm just sitting there like, oh, okay, yeah. Like I don't speak any Spanish.
Love it.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add?
No, check me out if you're not familiar with the work. Rooster_Ohio on TikTok, Twitter, and then rooster.info, the blog. Be around. Unfortunately, what's good for the state or what's bad for the state is good for content now, and there's no shortage of content. So
Wonderful. Well, thanks for chatting. I appreciate it, man. Cheers.